I would ask that you join me in thanking Dr. Ruth Holmes and Savannah Bingham for the music they played while we were eating. Because of time, we're going to move on into certain portions of our program right now. I would like to direct your attention to the video. We'll be watching a statement from Dr. Maddox that he made on one of his last visits here to Lubbock Christian University.
I dreamed of this auditorium before it ever became a reality. I stood out on this campus and envisioned these buildings. I heard the chorus sing. I heard the band play. I saw the graduates march across the stage when there wasn't a building inside. That vision has been with us from the beginning.
My years at Lubbock Christian resulted in friendships that have still maintained until today. The people that I met 40 years ago.
LCU is a family, and we all feel like that after we graduated, and we've always taken it with us wherever we go.
I don't feel at home anywhere in the world like I do standing right here.
It's a very special thing about LCU that once you go through that campus and you're touched by those professors, you stay connected to them for the balance of your life.
I was surrounded by people that I loved. I was surrounded by friends who I knew cared about me. Surrounded by the faculty, staff, and administration who wanted to be there.
I said to myself, I'm going to have to surround myself with great people, with great vision, because I want this to be the greatest institution anywhere.
I'm very proud of you faculty at LCU. They always meant to have their very brightest.
They were just very committed to the institution, to the ideals of it, to what Christian education meant.
I see these men and women of faith today continuing to take the torch forward.
Good teaching becomes great teaching when it's placed in context of a higher purpose.
And we did not neglect the spiritual. Our emphasis was to be like Christ and have a great Christian family.
Success not only comes through graduating from college, but it comes through your personal walk with Jesus. And from the get-go, LCU seeks to instill that in all of their students.
Quality of humility of the people that are there, and also commitment to one another based on our common faith.
I knew it when I was at Lubbock Christian, and I know it every time that I step foot out on that campus, that His presence is there.
The deepest meaning that I find is when I'm serving others, and that comes directly from the lessons taught on the campus of LCU.
This world belongs to God. This is God's world. We're living for God. We're out to make this world a better place. And the vision of service, the vision of character building, and the vision of taking the gospel to the entire world. That's a part of what has made Lubbock Christian College what it is. And don't you all lose it. And I urge you to keep your eye on the vision.
I want you to hold on to two phrases that you heard Dr. Maddox. I think they're critical as we look at the history of this institution. I was told to give a brief historical sketch of our presidential history. So in order to keep things on track, I simply brought a note so that I can get through this and not have to reflect on things that are not true, and perhaps retract. But I want you to hold on to his statement about surround himself. I must surround myself with quality people. When I look at the 5 presidents who have served prior to President Perrin, and I look back historically, there are 5 of us who remain on campus who have worked with each of those presidents, Dr. Blackwood, Dr. Estep, myself, John King over here, and Billy Pechtel. We have served with them. So as I began to think of a brief historical sketch of the presidents, Dr. Maddox served 17 years, Dr. Hacker 2 years, Dr. Pruitt 6, Dr. Limley 11, and Dr. Jones 19. And in my opinion, the history can be summarized fairly simply that Dr. Maddox supplied the vision for Lubbock Christian University, which you heard as he closed there, and you heard his threat, do not lose that. Each fall I show this to freshmen because I tell them that I am hopeful that they will want to return, as many of us did, so that they can keep this vision alive. And as you look at our campus and as you look at those people who are serving, you find a large percent of folks who finished here, both in the junior college, senior college, and who have come back because they accepted Dr. Maddox's statement, don't lose this vision. And so I see that Dr. Maddox supplied that vision, and he also supplied the statement, you have to surround yourself with competent people. We've gone through periods of reduction, we've gone through periods of expansion, but most significantly, I think as we look back at the history, each president following Dr. Maddox has helped translate the vision into reality during their specific time. And part of that translation into reality has been the successful transition as new generations of faculty come on board. In 1969, a great group came on board. In 1988, in 1993, and as I look at this most recent transition, I see perhaps the greatest group that we've ever brought on as far as academic prowess, their preparation, their zeal. It could be I'm aging because I think I had that same zeal 43 years ago, I believe, but they really have a zeal, and that's impressive. And believe it or not, I think as you look historically, we've been helped by SACS through the self-studies because they required us to look more closely at the vision statement. Every 10 years, there's a renewal. And in my opinion, that's been very significant in our work. Dr. Evans helped complete that initial study for candidacy, and then Dr. Hacker stabilized the transition. Dr. Pruitt achieved the first 10-year accreditation. Dr. Limley did the second and moved LCC to LCU and introduced graduate Bible. Dr. Jones has handled 2 10-year studies, expanded numerous undergraduate programs, and also our graduate program, which I think by the time we have enrollment for C semester, we will be right at 500 grad students, which is significant and a nice growth on our campus. The campus has also changed in another way, and you heard this alluded to this morning. One thing different now is that we faculty and staff don't do as many sidewalks. We don't refurbish as many buildings, and that's truly a sign of maturity. It also speaks of better workmanship, that things will last a little longer now. That long sidewalk between Katie Rogers and the CDC was done by a number of us, and I am not the greatest jitterbugger that has ever worked in concrete. Now, back to the presidents though. Each president recognized the importance of teamwork. And as I view the past work of each of these gentlemen who have led this university, in my opinion, they each completed specific tasks during their respective watch, which allowed the next president to open his eyes to new horizons. And in my opinion, that's why we've continued to grow, because of the successful work of laying the foundation, stabilizing, moving us forward. Dr. Maddox's vision met the test that we were told on Monday. A test of vision is if that vision continues to give directional force in the right direction. Each of our succeeding presidents has accepted the challenge, has fulfilled that vision. Several years ago, I attended a seminar sponsored by the Navy, and I was impressed by a tradition they have. I was on board a ship, the Ajax, and the captain had departed the ship earlier before our arrival. And when he came back on board, they announced over the speaker system that Ajax is arriving. And I thought to myself, in that sense, Ajax still arriving rings in my mind. And I believe that's true of each of our presidents, that they gave up their own self-interest to take care of the college or the university. And that's been a most significant tradition in our history. We've been blessed with outstanding leaders in the past, and we know that we are honoring the sixth president who is going to continue this legacy of great leaders which began with Dr. Maddox. So that's my quick look historically. I'll save the book for you later. I wrote a 50th anniversary, which I started to bring over, but I thought I did best. But I want to take this moment to introduce Dr. Perrin, who will then bring the presidents up for us. He's coming home. And the intro that I alluded to earlier used a phrase about him. It summarized his work, that he most certainly could not have foreseen spending 2 decades at Pepperdine as first professor, then as dean of the law school, nor could he have imagined himself returning 28 years later to assume the presidency of his alma mater. Yet he did, and he has. And this is a phrase I want you to hear. Such meteoric success deserves to be celebrated elaborately. And I believe we're doing that, not just for you, sir, but for the university as a whole. And that phrase, meteoric, just jumped out at me because your mom would ask the writer to explain his intent. What did he mean by meteoric? And I'm going to simply say, how else would one rise in a meteoric way except he comes from great lineage? Parents, such as Les and Elaine. Les taught many of us to understand God's grace. And at the same time, he taught us it is not good to lose. No matter what you're doing, don't lose. And so it's interesting to me that we have a new president who brings his history back to us from a parent who understood God's grace and really preached it. And yet, he never wanted to lose. So we have a president who has an interesting historical perspective. And from your mom, who loved reading, who loved individuals, and in my opinion, loved most of all to ask why. Why did you do that in that play? It still rings true. She would always come to see the shows, and she would always stop me and say, I guess I didn't understand, so explain to me why. And so, I want you to understand that our new president comes from a pair of people who were extremely special, who were extremely dedicated to LCC, extremely dedicated to the church, extremely dedicated to people. And most importantly, he brings a background in theater, which has really prepared him. President Perry.
What a great joy to get to be with you today. Thank you all for coming and participating in this wonderful celebration of the rich and powerful heritage of Lubbock Christian University. What a great thing to be a part of. I have been so fortunate to know all 5 of LCU's presidents. And I was just been thinking about how many people are in that position when they come into an organization and they have the opportunity and the privilege to have known the leadership in that way, to have known their families, to have seen their example, to see how they embody the spirit of the organization through their lives. Wow, I just count it such a great privilege to be in that position and have a lot to live up to, I think is the lesson of all of that. But today we have a rare treat. We're going to listen in on a conversation between 3 of our former presidents. We're very sad that Dr. Joe Hacker, who was the 2nd president of Lubbock Christian University, is unable to be with us today because of his health. He sends his regards. He was disappointed to not be able to participate. We encourage all of you, we want to lift up Dr. Hacker in prayer and be mindful of him and continue to celebrate his contributions to LCU's heritage. And I want to invite up my 3 predecessors who are with us here. We'll start with our 3rd president, who served from 1976 to 1982, Dr. Harvey Pruitt. Please come in. Also joined today by the 4th president of Lubbock Christian University, Dr. Steve Limley, served from 1982 to 1992. And our Chancellor Ken Jones, who served as president from 1993 to 2012, or at least as CEO, Ken Jones. All right, so I'm going to get us started with a few questions, and we'll get this. We don't have as much time as we might like, but we'll take advantage of the time we have for a conversation. I've gotten a lot of advice since I came into this role, almost all of which I was grateful for, and it's been extremely helpful. I've sought a lot of advice from a lot of different people. I got a letter from a president of a college I'd never heard of before, just in response to the inauguration, a very kind note, and it's the one of all the many notes I received like that I'll remember. I had 2 pieces of advice. I'm going to share one of them with you today because I thought it was so good. This person said, this was the advice I was told when I was becoming president, and it was, start off running as fast as you can and then gradually speed up. The secret to success as president. I think there may be something to that. I don't know. So I'm doing some speed work. I've got to find a way to increase my speed. That's really where I wanted to start with our former presidents here today. I'm interested as you look back, if there's anything you wish you had known when you took on the job, is there something that I should know as I begin the job? What words of advice or counsel would you have for me as you think about your beginning as president of Lubbock Christian? Harvey, would you start us and we'll work our way down the road?
You're supposed to go in order.
Oh, shoot. I skipped out of order. I jumped all the way to the last question or the next to last one because I like that one the best. Is that okay? I completely, see, I've already messed up. I mean, what?
Is this turned on? No. I just want to tell people a little bit of history that they may not know. I was asked by the search committee to visit with them, and one of the main characteristics we were looking for in a new president was a man whose first initial was L. And what was your question?
What do you wish you had known when you became president? What advice, what encouragement do you have for me as I begin this opportunity?
That's it. What I wish I had known. Well, there's a lot that I wish I'd known. I had no idea of being president. Had not ever thought about it, never wanted it. And 2 weeks later, I was one. Mr. Baker and Mr. Hancock came and talked to me. So I didn't have time to think, what do I wish I knew? I wish I knew everything.
Yeah.
And if you talk about hit the ground running, that's what it was. I went to the various trustees individually and talked to them, and 2 weeks later they said, "You are." So there are a lot of things that you don't know. There are a lot of things you do know that you don't need to. I wish I had a little more background in science and math when I got to working with the water project, but I worked with a lot of things, as you can imagine, that I had no background for, and I had to learn on the job. So I don't know specifically what would be of benefit to them.
Yeah. Okay, note to file, have some scientists around. That's good. Steve?
Just so the audience will know, we've had a chance to look at these questions already. So we're not coming at this completely blind. I noticed that Harvey has notes, I have notes, Ken has no notes. So draw your own conclusions.
They will, I promise you.
In answer to the question, is there anything that I wish I had known and that I would advise you with regard to? Yeah, there's a sense in which I was the baby of the bunch. I was 37 years old when I started. And so there were some of life's lessons that I hadn't yet learned, and I had to learn them while in process. And I think one of those is that God blesses us not so much according to our plans and our activities and our vision, but He blesses us as we get in motion. As I reached the end of my 11 years, looking back, I could really see that those things that I thought I could do, would do, should do, so often did not work out. But other things did. Somewhere along the way, as I got in motion, as we got in motion, good things happened. And I could only attribute that, in looking back, to Providence. When the time comes that you have a vision, make a plan, and begin to execute the plan, and it doesn't work, be not dismayed. Something good is on its way.
Thank you, Steve. Tim?
Well, I think anybody who steps into the presidency of any institution, each institution's unique, has a whole wealth of things that they don't know and never will be prepared for. But if I were giving you a piece of advice, what I think is the best I know about it is the success and the future of Lubbock Christian will be highly correlated with your ability to grow personally, spiritually, and in your leadership ability. The more you dedicate yourself to personal growth, the better this institution will do. I think that's absolute correlation. So that's my best advice for you.
Oh, that's great. Thank you very much. I appreciate that. Okay, Harvey, just for you, I'm going to the top now. We're going to go to the first question. I've been going to keep this in order. What's your most memorable accomplishment as president? Something that you look back on and think that, that's something that, through God's good grace, is something I'll always remember.
Well, I think I may be repeating myself a little, but I think one of our the greatest challenge was our water project. I did not have a background in engineering or biology, whatever, but I was working with engineers, and I was working with public health people. We had to clear our project with 24 different federal agencies. We had to develop a plan with the engineers to farm with municipal wastewater. It had never been done with sprinklers before. And out in windy West Texas, that upset the EPA. They wanted to know what health effects this might be. But we, through months and months, and it took some of it, a third of my time, we put this proposal together and we went to Washington, presented it to the EPA, presented it to Mr. Mahon, who was our congressman. Mr. Mahon said, I think it's a very good project and I'm all for it, but I will not approve it as long as the land belongs to Mr. Hancock. If it belongs to the college, I will. When I came back and told Gene and Eileen Hancock, Mr. Hancock said, that's no problem, draw up the deed. So immediately we got 4,000 acres of good farmland down south of Wilson. But it was the largest grant that EPA had made to any college or university in the nation at that time. And we were farming for 16 years with municipal wastewater. I certainly never thought in my years before that I would be working with municipal wastewater. I didn't know that I would be farming, that I would be working with a health effects study. It was the largest health effects study ever done at that time with municipal wastewater. When we got about 16 years ago, during Ken's time, I think, the city of Lubbock decided if it was such a good thing, they'd just take it over. So with the law of eminent domain, they did, and they paid us $6 million and said, now it's ours. But the actual amount that was ever brought to LCC over a period of time was about $12 or $13 million, which we certainly needed in our endowment. And if anybody had ever said to me earlier, you know, some of the trustees, as I talked to them about becoming president, said, do you think you can raise money? I said, I don't know. I've never gone out like this to raise money. If they'd have said, do you think you can farm with wastewater, I'd have thought they were crazy. But as Ken was saying, and as others have said, you do whatever comes along, and you ask the Lord to help you over and over and over again, and it is indeed the work of the Lord.
Great. It's a great story of God's providence in the life of LCU. Thank you. Thank you, Harvey. Steve?
My most memorable accomplishment as president, you mean other than the John Wayne Rock?
Well, I think that's assumed. So what would be second? Yeah.
Well, it's honestly a hard question because I really would need, and I will, I would need to mention the names of people who constantly made me look good, better than I was anyway. Catherine Thompson and Jerry Perrin and Bill Phillips and Dale Simpson, John Hay, and Ricky Harmon, who was kind of in and then out, but did a marvelous job with the first campaign that I was a part of. Don Williams, Gary Estep, Steve Ekman, who's gone on to be college president, and John King, who is still here, still doing a great job, as are others that I've mentioned in this list. And then faculty and staff, I won't list everybody, that stayed productive and creative and patient and loyal through 11 challenging years. Wonderful board of trustees. And I always felt the support of 25 years of presidents behind me. They were all alive and all in touch and very important, and I had something to live up to in all of them. To get more direct about it, I thought about it, and I pulled out a resolution that was signed by every member of the faculty and staff that was given to us when we left in 1993. And I've got it hanging behind a door in my office today. Emily's in the resolution as well. I don't know who wrote it, but I wouldn't be surprised if Harvey wrote it. He was the resolution writer. But the resolution mentions consolidation, peace, stability, enlarging the library, the nursing program, fundraising, debt reduction, and the university initiative. And then there were I found in a box as we were moving and unpacking, I found about 100 personal notes that were written from faculty and staff. I think Catherine organized that. And they were presented to us. And then there were some very kind letters that came from members of the community. And nearly all of them mentioned stability. So maybe that is a clue. I really think, though, that of all of those things, maybe taking on the university designation and the nursing program are the things that are most easily traced as things that exist today that began during that time, and they gave us, I think, a lot of energy and advancement. It's remarkable what has happened to the nursing program, and it is remarkable how far it has gone in advance of anything that I or Gary Eastat, who was so important in getting that started, getting that going, far greater than anything that we imagined. I think those might be the most lasting visible markers.
Ken? Thank you, Steve.
Well, Susan and I have many wonderful memories of 19 years of Love Christian. And so many things happened, and I too could talk about the people, because the people who worked here made the difference. The students made a tremendous difference. I loved the students, loved being with students. In terms of accomplishments and memories, there's one memory I think will never leave me. And Dr. Williams talked about accreditation. The 1998 accreditation was a miserable experience for this campus, and certainly for me. I will never forget sitting in the Catherine Lynch Thompson conference room, and they were saying to us, we have 45, I think it was, recommendations for you. Now, in that day, 45 recommendations is almost like a death sentence. And the death sentence, part of that had to do with finances. So I remember distinctly being summoned to Atlanta to meet with the Southern Association of Colleges, the Commission of Colleges and Universities. And I remember Rod Blackwood and Kevin Elmore meeting me at the airport, and they were nervous. I could tell they were nervous. And I walked into a room of college presidents, a U-shaped room, and a lot of presidents, and they're all staring at us. I was in the center, Rod on one side, Kevin on the other side, and they're all staring at us. And didn't know what they were going to ask, and what I was going to say. But one of I caught the eye of one that I kind of knew, and he and I made eye contact, and one of them spoke up and said, I'd just like for you to tell us, kind of harsh actually, I'd just like for you to tell us how much money the Churches of Christ give to you. And I said, there are times we would rather be Baptist. And the whole room fell apart. And we slid past that. And at that very moment, that same time in 1998, the city was talking to us about the land, Harvey, that Mr. Hancock gave to us, that you put the water sprinkler system on. And they were negotiating to buy it. And we actually, through the help primarily of Jerry Harris, the chairman of the Board of Trustees, who pulled powers all the way from Washington, D.C. They did not take it in a domain. They bought it at a pretty stiff price. And we took those funds and were able to clean up everything. And the part of the memory I want to tell you about is this. I'm pretty competitive in some ways, and I said in 1998, never, ever again will we go through this. Never. The next accreditation in 2008 will be stellar. I had no idea how we were going to do that. Actually, the faculty pulled it off. But Dr. Blackwood worked really hard to lead our faculty in 2008, and I don't know if Randy Sellers is in the room or not, but I'm telling you, Randy Sellers ought to be held up on a pedestal pretty high. Because I'll never forget Randy and I being with the visiting committee as they met with the two of us, and they walked away and they said, we can't find a single thing on this campus that we criticize. This is a stellar job. Saying that, here's the big deal. The biggest accomplishment through all those years for me was the credibility of Lubbock Christian University increased in the eyes of our alumni, in the eyes of this city in particular. But here's the big one. It increased in our own eyes. We began to believe in Lubbock Christian University. Our people began to believe. And that's the big deal.
for me. Well, time moves way too quickly, and I'm probably too much captive of it, but I want to say that we stand in your debt. Lubbock Christian University stands in the debt of each one of you for your faithful service, accepting the call even when perhaps you didn't expect it or were not even sure you wanted it, and stepped into this leadership role and served so faithfully and so willingly and advanced the university and gave all of us who are here today a chance to be a part of this wonderful institution and envision a future that is, to quote Noel Young, as bright as the promises of God. And so we take take a moment and say our appreciation to these three men of service.
What we believe right here is it is absolutely the best yet to come, and you will do one great job with this institution. God bless you.
While Charles is coming to the podium, I'd like to express appreciation to Salvador and his crew again for the excellent job they've done all week preparing meals for us. If you would join us, I don't think we've done this, but I think we need to express to the Inauguration Committee who planned all of this, thank you, because they've done excellent, excellent work in getting everything together. I keep a picture of June Bearden on my wall, and I also have a caricature that I keep in the Moody. And I jokingly tell the students that, you know, there's always a ghost in the theater. And if they hear strange noises late at night, I tell them, don't worry, it's June. She's trying to get me straight on something. And so I think what I would carry away and give to you, Tim, is that as the writer of Hebrews says, we are surrounded by a host of witnesses who have endured and who, in that sense, are still encouraging as we move forward. Charles?
Let's pray together. God in heaven, it is such a wonderful possibility that you set before us to serve you at Lubbock Christian. We cannot express to you deeply enough our thanks for the men who have accepted what must be often a difficult and trying job, that they would lead us, that they would help us focus on being what you would have us be. We ask a blessing on the families, the men who have served as our past presidents, and all that they have brought to us. We ask an even greater blessing in the parent family, that you would grant them the wisdom, the courage, the patience, the insight, the strength that was expressed in the lives of past presidents, that you would give Tim a deep understanding of your presence in his life. And may he see in us, faculty, staff, board, or students, an acceptance of a vision going forward to be better in your service than we ever have been. We thank you for using us to carry out a part of your work in this world. In Jesus, amen.
Thank you. Have a great day.